Hey, this is Kevin Pollak, and you're listening to WithoutYourHead.com. But I guess you knew that, didn't you? Unless, of course, you lost your head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Vladimir Jon Cubrt, writer, producer, star of Luba. He's also in one of my favorites, everyone knows, Hannibal. It's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Cool. So first of all, Luba, which I believe you're in San Jose right now at the Cinequest Film Festival, and you'll be premiering the movie this Saturday.
Yeah, we showed up on the 26th. My wife and I met here, actually. I was coming from England, and she was coming from home in Toronto, where we live and where Hannibal was shot. And we met on the 26th, and the opening night red carpet was the 27th, which was that yesterday already? I can't even remember. And our movie opens on Saturday the 3rd.
Mm-hmm. I thought actually, when you said you and your wife met there, I thought you meant like for the first time ever.
Nope. We met in Toronto for the first time, and fell in love.
Oh, that's a very nice story. Mm-hmm.
And the birds were singing.
For people who really, that's I got nice images in my mind now.
And cherubim were floating in the corners and with bleeding eyes, and that's the part you like, right? The bleeding eyes and claws and fangs and yeah. All that.
I'm not like a monster. I mean, I like regular movies too and nice stories. But for people not familiar,
what's one of your favorite family dramas?
Favorite family dramas? Well, maybe that might not be my I mean, I like mafia movies. Mafia movies are about a family, so Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Does that count?
Yeah.
Godfather 2.
Yeah, that's a family.
Yeah, definitely. You broke my heart. But so for people not familiar with Luba, give them an idea of what the movie's about, please.
Who's not familiar with Luba?
For anyone who might be listening who are just into like the crying cherubs.
Yeah, I don't believe there's anybody, but what the hell? I'll tell you anyways.
All right, fair enough.
Luba, I'm the writer and producer, or one of the producers, and one of the leads. I play the protagonist, Donnie Marchuk, who is the ex-husband to Luba Broda, who is the heroine of the film, title character, who is played by the wonderful, talented Nicole Maroon, who happens to be my wife. And the movie's about a single mother who's been treading water for a while, and she's just starting to get the notion. She's a working class girl and has a 6-year-old kid, and who she's raised mostly on her own. And the ex-husband, my character Donnie, is a recovering addict, and he's been doing better lately. And around the time that we meet Luba's starting to get the idea that she wants to try to make some improvements in her life. Just as she starts to get some stuff going on, Donnie relapses, and things get pretty hairy.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it just to finish up, but in a strange way, in a somehow his degeneration, what happens with all of that, ends up kind of fostering to some degree her finally being able to make a change in her life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, where did this story? What were like any inspirations from real life for you for the story?
Yeah, I'm a kid of a single mom, and so I guess that story just resonates with me, and especially at this age, I have a child of my own, so parenthood to me is much nobler in some aspects, at least the ideal of it anyways, and than it used to be when I was younger. You almost like, at least when I was a kid, I almost like gave no credit anywhere to any parent. But now that I've kind of been through the wars a little bit, I appreciate the sacrifices and the energy and the work that's required of parents. Even the most mediocre ones. And my mother was amazing, and she fought through a lot to raise her 2 boys. And so I guess that story just generally resonated with me. And then when I was in my late 20s, I think I met a woman who Luba's loosely based on, who was also a single mother. And she was also very disenfranchised, but had like the most buoyant spirit you could ever imagine. And even though she was getting the shit kicked out of her all the time by life, she just had such energy and lust for life. And I was just so in awe of this woman who had this kid that she was raising in pretty difficult in a pretty difficult environment.
Mm-hmm. Oddly enough, I'm myself a single mom, and it was 2 brothers, me and my brother, that she raised.
How about that?
Yeah.
I think there's a few of us out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So actually, is your mom still alive? Did you get to see the movie?
She is still alive. She's in fact coming to Cinequest. I just got a text for her that she just arrived in San Francisco. And she and my aunt are going to be, who are really, my mother is the biggest supporter that I've had in my life and continues to be up to this day in terms of my arts career. So it's appropriate that she's here for the feature film debut for me as a writer and producer. And yeah, she and my auntie are coming out to see the film. So
that's very cool.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty great to have them here.
Yeah. So like, before we get more to the movie, along those lines, like, when was it that you wanted to either make movies or act in movies? And was your mom and your family always encouraging in that? Your aunt?
My mom was really supportive in just about anything that I did, and she's one of those moms that thought I could do no wrong and thought I could do anything I wanted, and really rose-colored glasses, way too much optimism and belief in a son that was not nearly that skilled or talented. But when I was a kid, I was very lazy. Didn't really like to do any work and really just wanted people to watch me. And so acting seemed like the right place for me to be. So somewhere, I think in my early teens, my mom just one summer stuck me in an arts camp. She didn't know what else to do with me. She was a working mom, so she had to do something with me during the summers. And so I went to this arts camp and met a mentor type drama teacher who ended up telling me to come to the School of the Arts in Toronto. And that sort of got the ball rolling. And I ended up going through the school system, getting my degree also in theater arts, and then started a career and eventually got to writing. And writing is what kind of got me to be not just a jerk-faced actor who just wanted to be seen all the time and that was the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And helped me transform, if I can say this in quotes, into an artist. Because when I started writing, I realized that the thing that I liked the best about acting and movies was the telling stories. And specifically, I felt like I had some stuff to say about the world, about myself, about people. And once I started writing, that's when I realized that me choosing the path that I chose had some value to it. Mm-hmm. And started to feel like a real artist and a real professional.
Mm-hmm. Actually, speaking of artists, there's some cool art in the movie, like the opening and the closing credits, and then one of the characters in the movie. Who did that? Who did the art in the movie?
Jon Cubrt is an artist from Toronto, and he's kind of known for that style of line drawing that you see in the film. Mm-hmm. And I've known him. He's part of this peer group that I belong to. It's a professional actors peer group, and he sort of just moonlights as an actor. His professional work is as an artist, and he's done work everywhere. And he did a beautiful campaign for Macy's and a whole bunch of other stuff. I know he did a 9/11 thing on Wall Street, for the 10-year anniversary. Anyway, so he happened to be an old friend of mine, and he actually spoke at our wedding, Nicole's and my wedding, and we wanted to use his apartment I think I rewrote the character knowing that John was available to me. So the character of Ben, who is kind of sort of a love interest, and I don't want to spoil it, so I won't say anything else, but who Luba meets halfway through the film. I ended up writing this his professional Ben, the character in the movie, his profession as an artist, into the film because of John, because I knew John, and I can't. Pardon me that I can't remember which came first, but his studio was available to us, and John was interesting. So anyways, Ben became an artist, and we shot in the studio. And then including the art and John's art in the film in terms of the sequences, the opening and closing sequences, that kind of came later. It was during shooting that we started to talk about this idea. I think it may have even been around the time that we were shooting in John's studio. So kind of it was a gradual idea, and then once we decided that we were going to move forward with it, and we did it, I think it's a real asset to the film. Mm-hmm. Especially at the end. I think the way that the film closes, I think it allows the viewer to accept a certain level of transformation from Luba that they might not have otherwise, because it kind of lives in this sort of is it real, is it not world. So it's the movie doesn't close so literally, but it suggests or hints at a better life for Luba, and I think that art really helped with that.
Yeah, and then it's nice at the beginning. Kind of. So? Yeah, I get that, and then at the beginning, it's a lot of foreshadow of different scenes you're going to see, and then I liked how you just put that about the transformation, because it does, it shows what each character looks like, what's going to happen to them in the future. So that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
it was cool art.
Yeah, he's got a great style, and like I said, he's worked all over the world. He does a lot of commissions in Paris, New York City, and other places, Tokyo, I think. And he's really one of the most lovely men ever. Actually, not unlike the woman I mentioned earlier, who sort of inspired the character of Luba. John has that same buoyancy and just loves life, man. The dude just loves life, and he's so genuine. And I don't know if you got friends like this in your life, but the people who are so genuine are the ones that I personally respond to the most. And John, I feel like I can trust that guy just about as much as anybody. And again, his lust for life is really inspiring.
Mm-hmm. How about the name itself, Luba? I mean, obviously it's an unusual name. Did that come from anywhere?
It was a bigger deal actually earlier in the script. There was sort of a more obvious reclamation. Reclamation? Is it reclamation or reclamation?
I think it's reclamation.
Reclamation.
But I'm not positive. All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, one of those. Whatever. She did one of those things. And her name was a part of that. You may recollect that mostly people call her Lou. And at one point in the script was more Sandra Bullocky earlier in the movie. There was some more obvious markers of development and progress, and I wanted to soften that a bit. I didn't want things to be too clear cut and too, if I may, Hollywood. So I took away some things that were there. One of them was where Luba and this love interest character are having a final moment near the end of the film. He says to her, "Okay, we'll see you later, Lou," and she says, "Luba." And then, it's that moment. I think you know what I'm talking about. And
yeah.
And it's the first time she refers to herself as Luba, and it was a whole thing. And then I took that out. So why did I tell you? But anyways, yeah, Luba is a Ukrainian name, and I'm Ukrainian. So I tried to sprinkle.
Okay.
Yeah, the development of the writing, there wasn't too much Ukrainian in of my Ukrainian cultural tradition. In the first draft, or you write the script 100 times by the time you finally get to shooting it. And at the beginning, there really wasn't any Ukrainian stuff, and somewhere along the way, I realized I should be putting this in. It's interesting. There's some beautiful colors in this, and I think it'd be interesting to people, especially people who don't know it. And her name wasn't Luba at the beginning, and then I chose the name Luba. I always wanted her to have a tomboy name. I like the idea of her having a name that, I don't know. Do you remember Facts of Life?
Oh yeah, of course. You take
And
the
do you remember?
good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of life.
So Joe was like my first crush as a
Yes.
boy, and she had that tomboy name, and I think that's where I kind of wanted to fall in love with the character of Luba, and somehow that tomboy name. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but certainly in this movie, I wanted that for whatever reason. I found it appealing for this character. Do you know what that is? Do you like tomboy names? Is that a thing for other people?
Yeah, especially when I was young. Well, I'm not any different now, I guess. But yeah, when I was a kid, definitely was more into the tomboys, like you're saying. I remember Joe, and yeah, I don't know. I like it because it's unusual.
Or did you like Blair? You were a Blair guy. You're a Blair guy.
Nah, definitely not a big nah.
Tootie?
Oh,
you're a Tootie guy.
No, I'm she was on the roller skates. That's good.
Yeah, she had the skates.
But yeah, and what you mentioned about sprinkling in some of your own culture and even like the artist, I think that kind of like fleshes out the characters and makes them more realistic. Like these are actually people that have lives and something unusual about them.
Yeah, and I think the movie, the inclusion of the Ukrainian cultural traditions, there's not a lot of it. There's the Christmas dinner at the opening, and really actually it's mostly just the opening and closing sequences, and otherwise sort of just some incidental interaction via Bob and Nancy. And she's the last member of the family that's trying to stay in contact with the Ukrainian heritage that they have. Donnie really doesn't have any connection with it anymore, and the Bob and Nancy's sister and her husband they go through the motions, but Bob and Nancy's the only one that really is still pushing for it and still trying to make it happen. And I think actually that I think one of the things that is interesting to me is like third and fourth generation people in North America who don't really have that connection anymore to where they came from, and then being in a country without any kind of identity culturally, you're kind of left on your own a little bit. And it's not like we're not hitting anybody over the head with it, but I think it's in there somewhere for people who maybe just have that in their own life, or maybe they'll see it. But I think Luba, and Donnie, both of them as these third or fourth generation Canadians, don't really have any connection to any tradition in their life. And I think, I don't know how much of a part of that plays into the loneliness and the ease with which Donnie falls into despair, but it could be a part of it anyways. But the other thing I think is that I think those colors are nice in a movie. It adds flavor and texture, and as you said, like it gives you a better idea of who the people are. And I think of Woody Allen movies, there's a lot of Jewish tradition, but the movies aren't about Jewish tradition.
Right.
And I think our movie is sort of similar like that. There is some Ukrainian stuff in there, but it's not about that. Yeah.
I think stuff like that, even if you don't actually even notice it, just that it's there, it adds something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how about Donnie himself? Is he inspired by anybody? And what was it like to, play that role?
Most of the bad guy characters, quote unquote, that I've written, are usually inspired by myself and where I think I either am going or was going. So, I usually take, like with Donnie, I relate him to a period in my life where I was very destructive and didn't have any sense of self. and didn't have any solutions to my questions or my problems other than to medicate. So I got out of that pattern, but I write Donnie almost as a cautionary tale to myself, like this is where you were going. I know it. I know the feeling of going back to vices that seem like, well, this is the answer. There's these things that we do that, strangely enough, I remember this. I don't know if you have experience with, drinking or drugs or whatever, but my relationship with that stuff was that I'd keep doing it, and I had this like ideal in my head of where I would arrive while I was using the stuff, and I was always in pursuit of this ideal. The one time that you were at a party and you were, perfectly high, perfectly drunk, smoking, and chicks were loving you, and you were hilarious, and your buddies were all thought you were hilarious, and everything worked. And that happens to you one time in college, and then you're chasing that for the rest of your life as somebody who continuously uses. And that's always the answer. And I think Donnie's like that. Like he can't think of other solutions, or they're just too hard for him. So he always goes back to the same thing, especially when things get really tricky. And, in this movie, things go wrong early on, and he doesn't know how to choose another path, and he doesn't know how to look for a different answer. So, sorry, just to finish it. Sorry, I'll let you jump in. That was a little long-winded.
No, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, so I take that, which I know that. So I know that what that's like. I know that struggle, and I happen to have overcome it. But I've actually written stuff where I was still in the process of figuring. Not to say I've completely I've arrived. I haven't arrived, but I'm certainly further along than Donnie is in this film. And so I look at what's going on for me in my life a lot of the time when I'm writing the antagonists and try to figure out where they're headed. And again, I think I'm almost always telling myself, you got to watch it because you have to fight to be better. You have to fight to make good choices. Making good choices is hard. It's hard. It requires, you got to be brave, even little ones, even like going out and not having a drink, that's hard for many, many people. And it seems like, like so easy to do and will make things better so often. But for a lot of people, it's the total opposite of that. Not everybody has this, a struggle with this stuff. Some people they can partake and it's not a big deal, but certainly people like Donnie, and to some degree myself at one point in my life really, have trouble with that.
Yeah. And I like that he's self-aware of it. He knows the path he's going down, and he knows what's going to happen, and he talks about it. And I also like that for the most part, obviously I don't want to spoil the movie or anything, but he's a sympathetic guy. Like you don't hate him for most of the movie or anything like that. He's kind of charismatic and everything, so you can see why, like, his son loves him and everything, and I like that because it seems like a real person, not just this very everything's negative. He's a despicable guy or anything like that. This is someone who has problems.
Yeah,
and then of course it gets much worse. But
yeah, I'm glad that you've responded that way to him. That's good to hear. What did I want to say about that? Yeah, I think one of the things that happens with movies that deal with drug addiction and alcoholism is that making full characters who have appealing traits about them as well as watching them degenerate. Getting those things happening at the same time in a 90-minute movie, it's hard to do. And I can see why it doesn't work a lot, but I think it's really important that it does, especially if you're making, making a movie where you want to explore addiction and you want people to be sympathetic to the characters, you have to find a way to make them appealing. And I think a lot of times the way that the characters are appealing is just by being shit-kicking, party hard rock stars. But you don't really get to see a lot of intelligence necessarily, or softness, or caring. And I think to some degree you see enough of that in this movie from Donnie that, as it seems you're saying, you find him sympathetic to some degree, even as he's spiraling downwards.
Yeah, and he just can't be left alone in the movie. And I don't think that's spoiling anything, because it's pretty much right at the beginning.
Yeah,
because he's left alone to himself. He's just going to go down that path right away.
Yeah, pretty soon. I mean, the movie's 87 minutes long, so we couldn't take too much time to get to it.
Mm-hmm. It reminded me.
I don't know if you know. Do you know about Save the Cat? Do you know that?
No, I don't know what that is.
Okay, well, there's a writing book that's sort of like the screenplay writing Bible for Hollywood, and it tells you got to have, by page 10 of your script, this has to happen, and by page 18, this has to happen, and by page 30, this has to happen, and so forth throughout the script. And it's like, it will swear up and down this book that this is the key to a successful movie, is that you have to have all these markers. I bring it up because in sort of jest to mock it to some degree, but also there is some truth to it. Like, you want to be able to take your time fleshing out these characters in a movie. Especially as a filmmaker, you really want to be able to present full, rich people with backstories that people will really get to take their time with getting to know, and get to know a lot about them. You don't want them to just know this one thing in the whole movie. That's all the movie is about in terms of each of these characters that you're going to meet in the film. And that it's just so hard to do, especially when you're going to lose your audience within 12 or 13 minutes. Either you're going to bore them, or they won't find characters appealing, or whatever. So, that first 50 minutes is really important, and especially conflict and action. Those are things that, if you don't have stuff happening early, a lot of people check out. So you're very cognizant of that as a writer, about that first 20 minutes of your film. And really, actually, it's I think we all took a risk to some degree on this film, allowing the action to take as long as it did to play out, because I don't think we really get to it until about the 11th or 12th minute. And for a lot of films, that's they get into it, and like these days, it's like in the second minute, like The Martian. I don't know, I just saw that the other day. It's like, a minute in, and everybody's dying. Or what was the one with Leonardo DiCaprio? That one where he just gets the shit
The Revenant
for 2 hours.
Right. Yeah, The Revenant, I believe.
Yeah, The Revenant. How soon into that did people start dying? Like, it was pretty quick.
Right. Yeah, it is just nonstop. It's just a big giant battle scene, I think, is the opening scene. They're getting attacked when you don't even really know any of the characters or anything. It just opens up. They're like bringing their furs to their boat, and they just get swarmed and attacked, which in a way is neat. But I mean, you're not even in a way, you don't even care about who's getting killed, because you don't even know who they are yet.
Yeah, and that's my feeling is that I need to know who people are. If I don't know who they are, then I won't care about them. I'm not going to care about somebody just meeting them for 10 seconds, and then they get, then they're already into the, either getting the shit kicked out of them or fighting for their life. I don't know them. Why would I care? So
right.
to me, it's important that you got to know somebody to like them in a film. You got to know them. I don't know how else you like characters and want to root for them.
Right. Or else, why would it matter? What happens to this guy if you don't know anything about him?
Yeah, and that's not important to everybody. Not everybody really cares to necessarily connect with the characters so much, or not in an emotive way. Some people just So I understand people come to movies for all sorts of reasons, but the kind of movie that we were making here was one where you got to care about the characters. If you don't, then the movie won't succeed.
Yeah, yeah. So, have you seen the movie with an audience yet, or will this weekend be the first time?
This will be the first time with the proper audience. There's been lots of small screenings for it with like handfuls of people, but that was purely for the sake of like putting the movie together. You know, like making editorial changes and stuff. We would show the movie to people and get feedback and stuff like that. So this is the first time we're actually sitting down in a room with people that we don't know, who are all there with ticket in hand and a bag of popcorn and and soda pop, and are going to just chomp away in the film while they're watching the movie, which is pretty fun. You know,
yeah.
I've been yep. Sorry,
go on, sir. No, I was just wondering. You were about to say you've been. I don't know. In that, I don't think you've been in that situation before.
Well, it's my baby. This is my baby now. Yeah. What I was going to say is that I've been in the theater before with other people watching the film and everything, but it's not. It hasn't been my baby, so it's a different story when it's your baby. You know, and the other situations where I'm just an actor in the film, then you know I kind of cringe a little bit during my scenes and like, I hope they don't notice that. I hate that line delivery or whatever. But you know, I'm not sweating the whole film. You know. Whereas this, it's like, you know, it's like trot. It's like your kid comes out to perform and you're there in the audience with them, and you just hope they don't trip or whatever, you know, and you just want people to like it. You want people to, because, you know, to a large degree, it's my heart and soul are in this thing, along with Nicole, who produced the film with me, and Kaylee, the director, Kaylee Wilson, and Justin Beatty, the DP. Like, there's a core group of those four, and our executive producers. I don't think they're as emotionally involved because they weren't involved in the creative part so much. But Mark Navabi and Bill Struss. But then our editor Chris Mutton, and our score. Our composer, James Newberry, who really poured a lot of heart and soul into this film, and it took a long time to put everything together. And, you know, we worked hard, you know, with so many revisions to get each and every element of the film right, from the score to the picture edit to the sound design. Tom Murray, who was our re-recording mixer. Do you know what that is?
No.
Yeah. All right. Well, he's the guy that makes the whole film sound good. He makes the dialogue.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah, the dialogue's got to sit properly with the score. He does some EQing on the score, on the dialogue, on the sound effects, on the Foley. He's the guy that at the very end puts all the different different sound elements together and makes them all sit just right. And Tom Murray was our re-recording mixer, and he was at it forever. So, you know, every film has so much labor, which I don't think, you know, unless you're in the business, you don't realize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about Kaylee, the director, Kaylee Wilson? Did you know her before? How did she come about to become the director?
Our Kaylee happens to be a man.
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I'll
edit that.
I'll tell him, and you and him can have a discussion about that. I think he's fine with it, though. He must get that a lot, I think, because I think since we've been at Cinequest, anyways, I think pretty much everybody's presumed that that Kaylee's a woman, because he's not here. So everybody's like, "How is she? Is she nice?" I'm like, "Yeah, he's great." Kaylee, my wife and I basically we were developing the film for about 3 years before things really started to move, and when we met Justin, the DP. We had just secured our financing, and then Justin, the DP, Justin Beatty was the first person that really was our first key member of the creative team to sign on. And then he was the one that introduced us to Kaylee Wilson, who he and Kaylee had known each other. They had come up together for years and years and years, and they were both about to take this next step as project leaders, and they were looking for something to get that rolling. And Justin himself, the DP, had just purchased a beautiful camera called an Arri Alexa Mini, and he wanted to shoot his first feature on it. And we happened to be there at the right place and right time because he's a very talented person, and the equipment that he had is beautiful equipment. And he suggested that we meet with Kaylee. And so Kaylee, we agreed, and Kaylee and Justin, myself, and Nicole all sat down. We had a few round tables together to discuss the film and talk everything over. And after, I think, our third meeting, maybe, we decided we're all going to move forward together. And this was Kaylee's debut as a feature as well.
No, very cool.
Pretty much the entire team is first time at the position that they're at. So Justin's DP'd many things before, but not a feature. Kaylee's directed things before, but not a feature. I've written and produced things before, but not a feature. So we're all taking that next step with this film.
Yeah. So it's all of your baby in a way. I would assume the movie's very personal to all of you then.
Yeah, to varying degrees, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I believe Troy is here with us now.
I am indeed.
Very good.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good. How are you, Troy?
Excellent, thank you.
All right.
Yeah. So I did see that at the end it's dedicated to Sam Moses, who plays a doctor in the movie. When did he pass away?
So we wrapped principal photography in April of 2016, I think it was, and then he passed away a couple months later, and it was very unexpected. He got something called Legionnaire's disease. And,
wow, that's like an old disease. Huh?
Yeah, and not to get into it too much, but he acquired that, and that led to other things, and then he was in intensive care for a period of weeks, and at the beginning they thought it was just pneumonia, and then they thought it was something else, and then eventually got diagnosed with Legionnaire's disease, and then around that time he fell into a coma and he never came out of it. And after he had a heart attack, and then he passed away. And he's well known in Canada, and I think a lot of people in America would know him or recognize him. He was in Ghostbusters, actually, probably that a very minor role, but a very loved role. He was the hot dog vendor. And he was in Moscow on the Hudson with Robin Williams, and he played a very funny character in that. And he was also in Adventures in Babysitting. He's one of the funniest guys I've ever met in my life, and sweetest. And he played a really funny doctor in Adventures. He had a really comedic, that classic clown face where just an eyebrow raise could crack the room up. And he was somebody I'd known for decades. His son is one of my oldest friends, is my best friend and my oldest friend. And Sam and I eventually became friends ourselves. And he was actually part of that same peer group that the artist Jon Cubrt was in. And so the film Luba is his last film after 4 decades. He started acting in the 70s after being in the National Ballet of Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was living in New York City for a long time. So he had a prolific career that spanned many decades, and he's well known in Canada for a few different things. And Luba was his last work.
How about your wife playing the lead? Was she always going to be Luba?
No, I think that's one of the most interesting stories of our film, production wise. She and I were throughout the whole development. She was never. I think we talked about it maybe once, sort of casually, like, would you be interested? And then she's like, no, I don't want to do it. I think the reason why she wrote it off immediately, I would guess, is that she just didn't think it would be good for our relationship, our marriage. So it wasn't really on the table, actually, throughout that 3 years. And then the financing happened very quickly, just suddenly, which is how it often works in the film. Nothing's happening for years, and then suddenly something happens, and then you have to go. You can't wait. That's why, I don't know if you know about film schedules, but they're just bizarre and crazy and weird, and it doesn't make sense from the outside. But once you've been in the business for a long time, it starts to make more sense, because you can just lose momentum so easily. So and it's all about the money. As soon as you have access to money, you gotta go. You gotta go, because if you don't, then you'll lose that money. It won't be available to you. So that's what happens. And per the industry norm, that happened with our film too. So suddenly we're going, and we still didn't have our Luba yet. We had one actress that we really liked, and things kind of started and then fell apart at that time with her, and then we kind of lost contact, and we hadn't been in touch with her for a year and a half, and then Nicole and I had an opportunity to do some other stuff together and during that development time, and then just somehow it just worked that it's like, I think you have to do it. I think you got to do it. And we talked about it, and I think she set a whole bunch of parameters, like, these are all the rules. If we're going forward, these are the rules of how we got to go forward. And I think I just agreed to them all, because I really trusted her and felt like she'd be able to do a really good job with the film. And also being really asked, as my wife, I knew that if the whole thing didn't blow up, which I knew that was just as likely a possibility, but if it didn't, then having her as my wife would be such an advantage in terms of work. And it was. I can't imagine a producing team working harder than Nicole and I have together on this film. And we can work around the clock. Like at 4:00 in the morning, if we're both up and doing stuff, or one of us is and needs some consultation, or somebody else has got to do some work, I can give her a shove, and she has to get up. I'm her husband. She's got to get up. What, you can say no? Well, then she's not getting breakfast the next morning. I'm not making it. So I think in a lot of ways that reluctance or I don't know if reluctance is the right word, or the fact that she wasn't necessarily invested in playing this character, even though she's an actress. That's what that's her profession. But she wasn't choosing to play Luba. That was never on the table for her. So, and I think that somehow helped. Well, I don't know if it helped, but she's so genuine in the movie. Her performance is so honest. It's so unadorned with BS. Like, she's not working so hard. I don't know if you know what I mean, but a lot of acting, sometimes they're working so hard. And I think the way that she came into this film, plus the fact that she was juggling 10,000 jobs all at the same time as a producer as well, meant that she just didn't have time for bullshit. And I think that really showed in her performance, which I don't know, I'd be interested to hear what you say. I think it's a very, very genuine and appealing, likable character, Luba is.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's a very, very real performance. Exactly what you said. It doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem kind of hokey like a character like that might. You know what I mean? It just seems like a real person, going through this.
Oh, good.
100%.
And we're still married.
Go on, sorry.
And Nicole and I are still married.
That's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's the best part of the whole thing, I think.
Yeah. It was touch and go there for a little bit.
So since Troy's here now, I do want to bring up Hannibal, because I didn't just make this up. We talked about every week we'd have a segment on the show where we would discuss the week's episode. It was all
very true.
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, let me help you out.
So first of all, how did you actually get involved in Hannibal?
Well, the way that most roles go, you audition and you get cast. So a couple of things that I think are interesting about it is that I thought I was only auditioning for a single episode. I didn't think he was going to be. There was no indication from the breakdown that I got that he was going to be an ongoing character throughout the show. And I actually don't think Brian Fuller knew at the time. that that was going to be the case. He was doing a lot of writing of each episode in real time. Like, basically, the week before shooting, they would get the scripts, or even a couple of days before. They would get the scripts. Yeah. So I think he was really working with a lot of what he was seeing during production on the day. He would see something happening. It was like, I got to do this. Now I got to change the scripts. This is a storyline I like, because this is what I'm seeing. There's magic here, so we're gonna go with this stuff. So he was very, very fluid and very, very in real time writing the stuff, which I think is highly unusual. You know, I think it might be happening a little bit more these days, but certainly in the old days it didn't go that way. Anyway, so I also was by far the youngest actor that was in the room auditioning with me. At least that I saw. Most of the guys were, like, I think 10 years older than me, so I was sort of wondering what I was doing there in the first place. But then I got the part, and then they kept calling me back, and that was wonderful and great. And I kept being like, I'm not really sure. Like, what are they going to get me to do this week? When my agent would call me and say, yeah, they want you back for episode 3 and then 4 and 5 or whatever. I'm like, really? Like, what now? And then I get the script and look at it and be like, oh, all right. Okay. That. All right, well, sure.
Yeah. That's cool, though, to become a much bigger part of the show than you expected to be if you were just, assumed it was going to be a one episode.
Yeah, it was great. And I mean, the Hannibal production was really special. The vibe of that set and the crew and the cast and everybody was just very special. There was, I don't know if it's a top-down thing. I don't know if it's just Brian and then everything flows from there. But certainly when I was there during shooting those, especially the first season, because I was only in one episode in the second and third seasons each. But throughout that first season, it just felt so good. It felt so like people really, really were invested in the show and trying to make something special. It felt like that, and it doesn't always feel that way. In fact, most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I'm not surprised now, at least, hindsight 2020, that the show has the following that it does still, and is, I think it's part of like the television canon now, isn't it? I think it is. I think it's right there.
Yeah, like you're saying, I mean, I think all that came through, that everyone that was making it really wanted to make something special, because every detail looked great. It was so unusual for especially network television. I mean, it was not even just like the graphic stuff. It was very well made, and it was well paced. It wasn't, nonstop, killing or anything like that. And the stories played out very well. It was I thought it was just a fantastic show.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things about Hannibal that were the first for network television. I think for the big three network, NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. I think Hannibal was right at the forefront of a lot of the changes that happened with network TV. And I got to tell you, every week that I got my script and I read it, and I was like, especially seeing how they were executing things on set, particularly the really gruesome stuff. I was like, how? I don't understand. At the time, I don't know how this is getting approved. I don't see how.
Right.
I don't see how this show is going to make it to air. I really thought, it didn't make any sense to me, knowing what I knew about network television. But they somehow got it on. I don't know how they did it, but they did it.
Yeah. I think there was only one episode that was just like pulled because it came after. I don't know if it was a shoot, some kind of tragedy, and they pulled the episode. It's on the Blu-ray, but it was. Yeah, that's right.
I don't know if you remember I think it was the first episode of the second season, but when it was the tapestry, the circular tapestry where they were all sewn together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
I just was astounded by that. And that was on NBC. It was on NBC.
Yeah.
Every week that show would blow my mind a little bit just with things like that.
Yeah. And there's a funny story amongst the cast and crew about there was a one scene, and I think it was the second season, where there was butt crack in it, and it wasn't getting approved by NBC, so they put blood on it to cover up the butt crack. And
That's
then
awesome.
Like, okay. Yeah,
That's perfect.
Like, all right, it's blood. That's fine.
Yeah, so
we can't show fair,
just,
but
just plain
bloody
butt
crack. That's
no go. Bloody butt crack, good to go.
Yeah, that's tremendous.
But Brian Fuller himself, what was he like? Was he hands-on a lot? I assume he was, but did you have a lot of interaction with him?
I had a fair bit at the beginning, especially of the first season. As the season wore on, I saw him less and less. But yeah, quite a bit at the beginning. And we had a number of conversations that were pretty interesting. You know, I was really curious about a lot of what I was reading in the script. So, you know, if there was any downtime, I'd ask him about things like the gender changes and things like that I thought were curious. And he's very amiable. And I don't know if you know the Fannibal fan base at all, but he was just at the Red Dragon convention in England, just the one before this last one that I was at. Mm-hmm. And I just heard story after story about how he was there till like 2:00 in the morning signing autographs, like way after everybody else had left. He was still there, and they're like, yeah, and the entire team of people that had to stay around, that worked the convention, just had to stay and wait for him to finish. But he wanted to give full attention to each Fannibal that was there, that was so invested in the show, and wanted to talk to him about this common love that they had. And yeah, he took time with each and every one of them for both, or all the time that he was there. It's a 3-night convention.
Oh wow! So is that convention just for the TV show, or is it for everything Hannibal related, like the movies and the books?
Well, there's all sorts of conventions, but the ones that I'm talking about are run by.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, the ones that I'm talking about are run by Star Fury, and they're Hannibal exclusive ones, in Heathrow in England.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I'd love to go to one of those.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's a new one that's been in Toronto. They had their first one last year, called Fannibal Fest Toronto, and that one's also great. It's a more of a homemade cottage style operation. I think the woman that runs it just does it like it's her own personal pet project. She's not a professional, but she was still able to get some, I think like 3 or I don't want to say 400, at least 300 attendees. And there was like the Fannibals. I don't know if you know the community that well. It sounds like you do, but you know the art. Are you familiar with all the art that's produced from the Fannibal community?
Honestly, no. I mean, we love the show, but I didn't really know.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look into this now.
Oh yeah, it's prolific. There's so much. And even now there's so much, and it runs the gamut from like anime type stuff to like autoerotic art with Hannibal and Will.
Wow.
Yeah, and everything in between, and then sort of cartoon styles and dolls and embroidery and like weird growth. This one woman at this convention showed me her art where she actually goes and buys organs and takes photography of the organs that she purchases, like real human organs, livers and hearts and shit, and then she shoots it. That's what the art that she makes, and there's an incredible amount of creative energy that is coming out of those Fannibals, and there's so much art. You got to check it out. Wow. Anyway, so
you've just opened up our eyes to a whole new thing now.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And at the Fannibal Fest Toronto one, they had a room where all of the Fannibal artists brought their art, and like a display room, like a showroom, like you would have it at an art gallery, and it was really impressive. And then this last Fannibal at Red Dragon Con 4, RDC 4 for short, in England, they put on a musical. And it was 10 countries.
Nice.
There were 10 Fannibals from 10 different countries liaison over the course of the last year to write, produce, organize, rehearse, and put on this musical.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's why. So I actually went to Silence, a musical, which was a locally produced parody musical about Silence of the Lambs. So was this? Yeah, which actually was fantastic. And so was this like comedic, or was it more serious? Or
no, it's pretty comedic. It's tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
I mean, the people that love this show, it's a really interesting group. I would never have guessed it. Like when I was shooting, if you had asked me what the fan base would be like, it would not.
Right.
I would not have guessed it would be the people that are attending the Fanimal conventions. I personally, this is my own take on the lineage of it. But if I was to draw a straight line from Hannibal backwards through entertainment history, I'd draw the straight line from the new fan base of Hannibal. The line would go straight back to the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh,
yeah.
I never would have guessed that either.
I wouldn't have, but that's what I see. You guys tell me. You sounds like you might show up at one of these at some point, just as a point of curiosity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's a really, really eclectic, interesting group of people, and yeah, I'll leave it at that. And really loving too. Like I always have so much fun. They're so much fun. There's nothing but warmth and goodwill. They're just so happy to have you there, and they just want to hang out with you and have fun together. And it's really great to go to them. I really enjoy them.
Yeah. So what was it like to see yourself as a toy? As an action figure? Well, a doll, I guess.
Kind of fun. I mean, I didn't, to be honest, I didn't really think about it too much. Actually, I really only, I mean, I just interacted with the thing the one time that we took the pictures, and otherwise I really haven't even thought about it to be honest. But it's neat. It's kind of neat.
See, I actually, yeah. I was just saying, I found when I was looking to put the banner together, that came up in my Google search. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. There, he's there holding the toy. So yeah, it's funny that not the one time, now it's everywhere in Google.
Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, there's so much of that stuff now for all of these, shows that have these cult fan bases, right? Like. So I mean, it's neat. I love it. It's neat and fun and stuff. Not totally surprising. Like I'm like, oh yeah, okay, a Garrett Jacob Hobbs doll. Yeah, sure. Why not?
Right, exactly. And also, there's a thing came up a lot. I thought was funny is there's an animated GIF of you being shot, which I don't know if you've seen, but
Party
I don't know how you
dude. That one?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that one somebody sent that to me some point. I think it's been around for a couple of years actually. I'd seen a long time ago. There was actually another one that I really liked. I haven't been able to find it since I first saw it years ago, but it was like this weird dance number with Hannibal, myself, and Jack Crawford, I think. And you know how they take the heads and they put it on. There's like live action, and they take the
right.
They put it on, and then it's like a big bobblehead. What's that? I don't know. I can't remember.
I know there's a website where you can do.
Yeah, that's what. That thing.
It's not ad libs, but it's
something like that. Yeah. Anyway,
so something jib.
Jib jab.
Jib jab. There we go.
Oh yeah, Jib Jab's a great site.
Yeah, and so somebody made a jib jab, one of those kinds of things that went around for a while, and it was pretty funny. It was very like, what's that Halloween song? What is the great flesh? The Monster Mash.
The Monster Mash. Yep.
It was a graveyard smash.
It was.
So I had that kind of thing. Yes. Pretty fun.
I have a cover of that on the website, by the way.
That never gets old, man. The Monster Mash does not get old.
Yeah, you can always go back to that.
Like when Humankind is all done, I hope they put it on that record that went into space. Is that on it?
I hope so.
On it? I think that's pretty much an essential of humans' musical experience, is it not?
There was something good about humanity. Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to have on the golden record, say
Yep.
Spain, you got to have Vivaldi.
Yeah.
You got to have ABBA. I guess you probably got to have Michael Bolton. And then the Monster Mash.
Monster Mash. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are the 4 essential ones.
Before the Beatles, gotta have the Monster.
The who?
Exactly.
Well, those guys too.
Okay,
But,
I want to say this while I have you guys here because I haven't said this in a public setting before. But is there not like a really interesting body language similarity between Paul McCartney and President Trump? The next time you see President Trump in a thing, watch him, and then immediately go and find a clip of Paul McCartney being interviewed, and tell me that they don't have the same thing. They do all the same mannerisms. They both look completely like you can't touch me. You can't touch me. Paul McCartney's been saying that for like 40 years, that nobody can touch him, ever since John Lennon became the best one.
Yep.
Ever since then, he's been like, no, I'm good. You can all think what you want about John, but I'm fine. I know I'm the best.
I don't know. You've never seen Trump and McCartney together before either.
Somebody's got to do a side-by-side thing of them. Split screen thing. Can you guys get on that? I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll definitely look into that.
Right after the show, exactly. So also, I do have to ask here, what are your thoughts on Hannibal possibly coming back?
Well, those Fannibals, sure, they think it can happen. It seems to me like a long shot. I gotta say, I mean, like you said, well, I think we talked about this earlier. Maybe Netflix.
Yeah, off. It was off.
Yeah, I think that would be a better bet than NBC, but I don't. I know that there's all sorts of legal rights issues too. Like some people own some part of the canon, and other people own another part of the canon. So I think it's a bit of a complicated scenario, especially if you want. All the characters that are in the Hannibal TV show, you could get those outright, I guess. But if you wanted Clarice, for instance, then you'd have to go to a whole other group of people to acquire the rights for her, and that's complicated.
Yeah. I was sad that we didn't get to see, the Silence of the Lambs story play out, in this particular universe.
I think that was the hope, is that was where season 4 would. Somehow it would eventually get to Clarice, I think. At least that was the rumors that I was hearing at the time, anyways.
Yeah, it is a neat time though that shows can sometimes they get canceled and go right to Netflix, or stuff comes back. Lots of things come back now. Twin Peaks comes back, 20 years later, and
X-Files.
Full House. I don't really.
Will and Grace is back.
Yeah, X-Files. Yeah, the Roseanne's coming back, and it's a weird time because that never happened, before. Like some show that was canceled 20 years ago would all of a sudden come back.
Well, what was interesting about the Fannibal thing is that there was a few little kids that were there, and I wasn't quite sure why they were there, what was going on, like whether the parents were just dragging them along, which actually at this convention they were. But it led to us having a conversation about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is still having conventions as well. And what they were saying is that the original fans are now parents, and they are introducing their children to Buffy. That makes sense. Yeah. So now you have these clans coming to the conventions of the two generations, which is like a whole new thing.
Yeah, we were just at Mad Monster Party in Charlotte. We had a table there, and we're right by the door, so we saw everybody coming in. And there was so many little kids, and they're dressed as Freddy Krueger and Jason, and party. It's cool in a way that I watch those movies as a little kid, so I can't really talk. But at the same time, it is a little strange.
I think that must be the funniest thing in the world would be to see a 6-year-old dressed up as what's his name? Something Krueger? Freddy Krueger?
Yeah, Freddy Krueger.
I think that might be the funniest thing that a person could see, wouldn't it be?
It's very funny, I think. I always think, like, because I've seen people even, have strollers, and it's like, dress them up as, as it's alive, or put some yellow that's probably not a good idea. So I say this is dress, but like put yellow contacts in them. It could be Rosemary's Baby or whatever.
As a parent, you got a certain obligation to yourself to do that kind of thing with your children. You got to dress them up completely inappropriately while they're still small and can't defend themselves. You got to put them in costumes that are just like they shouldn't be wearing that. Make them serial killers when they're 3.
Right. I'm all.
As a parent, you got to do that for yourself. That's your that's all you got.
Yeah, he's my little my little Charlie Manson.
Yeah. That's the gold right there, I think, as a parent.
Yeah. So, by the way, where can people find Luba? How can they follow it?
Well, we're on the festival circuit right now. So if you're living in one of the cities that we're playing, then you can see it. I can't tell all of the festivals because we're not allowed to announce the festivals until they announce. So I'll tell you the 4 that have announced right now, which are Cinequest, which we're opening this weekend on Saturday. And we got 4 screenings at Cinequest, which is in San Jose, California. Then we're going south to Idlewild and playing that, which is southeast of Los Angeles, near Palm Springs. And then we're going to New York City for the Women's International Film and Art Festival. And we're going to be playing there. And all of this actually is the first half of March, by the way. So that's all like from now until March 12th, I think is, Women's International Film Festival. Our screening there is March 9th. And then we go back to Toronto for the Canadian Film Festival, which is at the end of March, or towards the end of March. And that's the last festival that we've announced to this point. So, right now, until we finish the festival circuit, you have to go to the festival. You have to go to the festivals to see our film.
Yeah,
and if you want to find out, what's that? Yeah, and if you want to find out more about the film, you can either go to our website, which is lubamovie.com, or you can go to our Facebook group, Luba Movie on Facebook. And we're keeping that updated with all the screenings and any of the information that's pertinent so that people can find where the film's playing.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate coming on tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a nice chat. Thanks a lot for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed Luba and hope people check it out. Great.
Are you guys seeing anything else at Cinequest?
Well, we're in Massachusetts.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
But I would definitely be there if I could.
Yeah.
When we have, actually, Buff is coming up, the Boston Underground Film Festival. That's coming up at the end of March. That'll be a good time.
Oh, good. Right on. Well, enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's great to have you on, and continued success.
Yeah, thank you very much. Great talking with you guys.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, this is Mr. Fish, political cartoonist and Hellraiser, and you're listening to Without Your Head.